Hello, Out Entrepreneurs. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to episode number 28 of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. On today's show, we have an audacious entrepreneur, Davide Di Giorgio, joining us all the way from sunny San Diego. So, David, thank you so much for being on the show. Are you ready to inspire fellow Out bosses?
I sure am.
Well, a little bit about David. He is a longtime theater producer, creator, director, educator, and audacious entrepreneur. His unapologetic approach that shatters the mold of following blueprints, formulas, and systems has quickly made him the go-to creative expert on purpose coaches, entrepreneurs, and speakers who want to deliver their message unforgettably so they can transform their audiences forever. Simply put, David produces unique signature talks, keynotes, TED Talks, and audience experiences that make speakers unforgettable. So, David, it's so great to have you on the show. I feel really honored to have met you a couple of weeks ago in Phoenix at a conference. And I think everything that you're doing is amazing, number one, and incredibly relevant for a number of listeners of this program. You have a ton of value to share, and I'm just excited to learn more about you. So to get us started, can you tell us just a little bit more about your business and what makes it unique?
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me on, Rose. It's such a pleasure to connect with you again after our conference. So my background, I guess this is what makes me unique, is my background. I was a musical director, theater producer, director. At the same time, I became a teacher, head of a music department for 10 years of a high school. And I also opened a yoga studio all at the same time. It was crazy. And so I bring this unique blend of performance and production, transformation, and education together to work with on-purpose speakers who have a really big message that they want to share with the world. And what really makes me unique, and I guess it's because of being gay, is that I love to say that you are the blueprint. Because what I'm seeing in a lot of the speaker coaches out there and just in general in the world is like everyone is really hot on selling blueprints and formulas right now and systems, and here's the exact system. And the reality is that, I mean, you and I know we don't fit into a formula or a blueprint. So what would it look like if we made you the blueprint? And what I realized is that I've always worked like this. When I was a musical director, producing theater, creating unique experiences, it was always almost an intuitive way to build. And so I really look at the individual and figure out what makes this person tick. Who are they? Why are they on purpose? And we bring that to life in their talks, in their workshops, in their events, and all of the experiences that they deliver for their audience. So they can truly make a big impact and provide transformation.
You're clearly doing a lot of things. And I mean, just kind of busting out of the gate and starting your own business, starting with your yoga studio and doing more of the performance artwork in your past, it's clear that you're taking on a lot and really having a positive impact for those clients that you're working with. I'm curious right now, what's one thing in your business that has you most inspired?
I'm so excited that we're at a place now where we're creating really unique, immersive experiences. So I'm about to launch a couple of masterminds where all of my clients and people who aren't on my full retained client list yet get to work together with other amazing speakers. And we're creating some really cool stuff. So the thing that I'm absolutely most excited about is the speaker experience at sea. We basically decided to take speaker training and make it look like American Idol Hollywood Week and put it on a cruise. And so we're going to be doing those a few times a year to really dive in and essentially it's going to be like full immersion of like what it looks like to be a professional speaker and expect anything in the entire time once you embark on the ship until you leave. So I'm super excited about that.
That sounds incredible. And it's super smart too, you know, moving away from working one-on-one, which has its value, but really cultivating a community and having these larger groups come together. So you're obviously sharing your knowledge and your expertise, but you're also allowing other participants to learn from each other through that kind of peer education model as well, which I think is super smart. And you're on a cruise ship. So what more fun can you like there's a little bit of a boss vacation at the same time of doing something that I think for a lot of people is really scary, which is getting on a stage and speaking. And so, I'm really curious, at the start of this particular business that you're creating here, I want to know what your motivation was in getting started. And, usually what I see when talking to different bosses, especially on the show, is that there's typically one of two reasons why people start their businesses. The first is that some bosses really feel a purpose, like a drive to create something that's in alignment with what they believe they're here on the planet to do. And for others, it's more about being exhausted from trying to fit into a workplace culture that, even though it's a job where people feel like they're delivering their skills and bringing a lot of value, they have to kind of cover and compromise who they are, partly because of being LGBT. And so I'm curious, like, which one of those kind of two reasons resonates the most with you and why?
So for me, it really started happening when I was a high school teacher. And essentially, the best way to put it is I expired. I just expired out of teaching. I expired out of, that corporate, essentially it's corporate, environment. I expired out of pretending. So what was interesting is that I took a leave. Well, I tried multiple times. One year, I thought it would be a good idea. This was back in 2009 to move to the Arctic, and no red flags there, right? So
that's quite the leap.
Yeah. So I lived in Toronto. I'm originally Canadian from Toronto. And I thought, you know what? I see opportunity in Yellowknife. And I was doing some work with the Yellowknife Coral Society up there. And there were some opportunities, and I had a couple of friends. And I moved up there. And then, of course, we know how the story goes. That didn't work out. And I came back, and I tried to leave again. I took a leave of absence, and I came back, and, a couple months in, I knew I couldn't do it anymore. So I kept trying to go and come back and go and come back just to see what was going on. There was something that was pulling me away. And I didn't exactly know what it was, but it really does come down to I just couldn't pretend anymore for other people. I couldn't pretend. And it wasn't like I didn't work in a time where, LGBTQ, and I mean, gosh, I remember this specifically at my school. We had training where this woman came in, and it was like, I didn't even know all these letters existed. It was LGBTQ2A something to the power of whatever. And I'm like, what on earth? I think we're going too far. And it was funny because identifying with, I think we've joked about this, right, with alphabet soup. When we identify with that, I was kind of like, I don't actually really identify with any of that. Like, aren't we just all people here? Like, what? So it was really interesting being in that environment and being like, okay, we have to be sensitive. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is like ridiculous to me. And I think that was one of the big moments that I remember that pushed me over the edge. And I'm like, I can't pretend anymore. I can't pretend this is okay to just be like, okay, we're all gonna like be sensitivity trained, and okay, now we're gonna put the gender neutral sign on one bathroom in a school of 1,700 people, and that's gonna be okay. And it's just like, it was just all so condescending to me, because I'm like, I don't know what you people are talking about, but like, we're just all here. We're all making it work. And yeah, sensitivity training is super, super important, but I just found the way that they delivered it was almost offensive to me. And that's what really pushed me over the edge. It's like, I need to do something more independent of myself.
It's interesting that you talked about expiring out of this culture, which felt very corporate, and, at the same time talking about efforts that school systems are trying to make where it's seamless, where people of all different cultures, experiences, backgrounds can coexist and actually benefit from each other's differences. And the way that you're describing the way that effort was done, at your school, where it just kind of felt like othering in some way. And at least that's kind of like what I'm taking from what you're describing. And I'm curious, because we are talking about this workplace culture as it was for you at school. What's one thing that you're doing right now in your business to create a more inclusive environment, for those that you work with, or if you have subcontractors and people on your team, and especially for folks who do feel excluded by dominant workplace culture and the ways that you're describing your experiences at school?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I just see everybody. I mean, the way I put it is, I see everyone as a miracle. I don't see anything else. I see an amazing, incredible human who is up to something big and who has a massive potential to do something miraculous on this planet. And so in my business, and it's funny because meeting you actually almost was the little angel shoulder tap. And I don't think I actually told you this, but so you're going to hear this for the first time. It was like, you know what? This is the internal conversation. You know what, David? I think I could actually really make a massive impact on the LGBTQ community and then some and beyond, right? And what if I actually created an experience that is a safe environment that to allow, so part of my branding is to become unapologetic. And I mean, for me, that just gets me at the gut level, that word. And I know for other people in our world, I mean, everybody really, but even more so, I spent all of my life just being apologetic. Maybe that's partly Canadian too, but I'm just so tired of it. And I see
Yeah.
people around me who are tired of it and who need to just like say what they really want to say in an impactful way so that other people get it. It's like we're all just trying to do something amazing on this planet. So I've built a network of amazing on purpose LGBTQ people in my business, referral partners, people like you that we're just sort of like sending each other people, to support each other. I love it. I just feel at home when I'm working with family.
I have a huge smile on my face right now. So thank you for sharing that. I love that. I mean, just what you said about that you see everyone as a miracle. And I think that that's so key in the work that you're doing, where you're really trying to, one, get people over their fear about sharing their story with other people. But two, what you're saying about being unapologetic, that's a core value within your business, in that when you're not filtering your story, that's when you're going to move people. And that's usually when it feels scariest, right?
Exactly.
And so I think like on that, thinking more about your own story, I'm really curious. You talked a little bit about being a teacher, being in school, and not wanting to hide and to be unapologetic, especially as it relates to your sexual orientation. So I'm curious, did being LGBTQ, did being gay influence your journey to become your own boss? And if it did, can you just share a little bit more about why?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because part of that answer for me is no. And the other part is when I really look at the story of my life, there's been a long time spirit of collecting approval and validation. And as such, always wanting to or having the spirit of doing things just a little bit better. I was the kid in high school who needed to raise money for a trip I wanted to go on. And I didn't do a bake sale because that's common. Like, I had the entrepreneurial spirit and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make samples and I'm going to present them to the teachers on one day. And then I'm going to take orders for full cakes and full dozens of cookies. I was always doing one better. And so when I really look back, that entrepreneurial spirit has always been in me. It's almost that I've wanted to, and I hate to say it this way, but it's my truth, right? It's like I've always wanted to prove myself to myself that I can. Because I think there was such a level of, I knew there would be disapproval from my family. I mean, that's part of the story is when I came out to them, and I waited until I was 33, talk about being apologetic for a long time. So at 33, when I came out to my family, I was instantly disowned. And so I knew, the writing was on the wall for many, many years. And that's why I waited so long. And I guess that really pressed me, invited me to lean in really hard, to go to what was the scariest and be like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it happen. And I think it really did push me to become a full-on entrepreneur in every aspect of my life, just to have control. I think it was that aspect of having control in my life.
Thank you for sharing so much about your personal journey. I know that takes a lot to be vulnerable. And I liked what you were saying about proving to yourself that you can. And I just want to say, as kind of an observer of all that you're doing, and especially your social media presence, you're doing it, and I think that that's really inspiring for other people that are within your network and your friend group and in your family. And I want you to take us back, and if you can, share a time as a business owner where this could have been something really ridiculously challenging to be out in your business. So is there an example that comes to mind where it was hard to, maybe it was when you were first getting started, just to be unapologetic, 100% out? And the reason why I'm asking is because there's a lot of folks that are listening to this show and they're either aspiring to start a business or they just started a business and they're really trying to negotiate their own identity around being LGBTQ and how to build a thriving business and still be themselves and be 100% comfortable in their skin. So is there something that comes to mind? And if so, how did you work around it to be the outboss that you are today?
You know, it's funny as I really think about this, the cool part is, so as a boss, as an entrepreneur, I haven't had too many negative experiences, probably because I hid it for so long, very, very carefully. And now that San Diego is home, I never forget when I came here and, I got married and my husband's amazing. And he would say to me, he's like, babe, nobody cares here. Like, no one cares. Because I had a hard time even kissing in public or, I mean, we're not that couple, but I mean, just like even a peck or whatever, just to show affection, like, in the elevator when he's going to work in the morning or something, if someone else is in the elevator, and no one truly cares. But what comes up to mind is when I was a teacher, I actually had a situation where I had taken a couple of seniors in my car to go get some food for a rehearsal that we were all in. And a conversation came up of like, oh, what were we like? Remember when we were in kindergarten, what it was like? And the kids were talking. And I said, oh my gosh, when I was in kindergarten, I was like a gigolo. I had a girlfriend for every single day of the week, and this is a true story. In fact, I stood on a chair when I was in kindergarten and I was like, okay, Andrea, you're Monday. Ezra, you're on Tuesday. Sonia, because I like you, you're on Wednesday and Thursday. And this is a true story, right? And then I remember the one student said, oh, wow, I had heard some kids talking about that you were gay or something, but I knew they weren't true. And my heart sank. And I didn't say anything. And it's so clear in my mind that really pushed me to leave. Actually, that was one of the deciding moments in my life that I'm like, I can't pretend. And so, I mean, I guess to answer the question, in that situation, I transformed everything in my life because I knew that I was pretending. I wasn't being authentic to myself. And so how I dealt with it was like I started to come clean and peel the layers of my life and just be like, okay, people, here it is. This is what I am. This is who I am and what I believe. Take it or leave it. Unapologetic. I'm up to something big. And if you want to be a part of that, let's do something.
That's super inspiring to me, and I know for the audience as well. Since the show is also about empowerment, I'm really interested in, well, one, as a host, really amplifying the power of being out and authentic in our work. And I'm curious from your perspective, how you see being gay as an asset to being a business owner. What are some of the unique strengths that you see from your own lived experiences of having to negotiate, even just disclosing to people that you're gay or to talk about your partner or your husband? How does that show up in your business and how does that make you a stronger business owner?
Well, it's been so cool. Actually, now I think it's still surprising to me because every time I say it, even, just a few days ago, I had met with an older woman and married with kids and I said, oh, my husband, and just in conversation, and she lit up. And I find that every single time I'm surprised, every time that I've done it, people just kind of light up and they're like, they want to know more. And how long have you been married? And how did you meet? And so it's just been like, it's actually been a really positive thing. It's so silly. But I look at it and it's like, oh, it's actually cool to be, we mentioned in quotes, other. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the beginning, I really resisted. Like, I'm not other. I'm not, why do I have to identify with one of these letters? Or why do I have to have sensitivity training about being me? It's ridiculous. And now I'm finding that it really is, it's a positive. And it's not, I don't think like I'm more successful necessarily because of it. Although what I do know is that I work a little bit harder. And it's not out of validation anymore. It's just like, you know what? I'm here. And if I really want to say what I want to say is like, I'm here, which is with a B. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm ready to take on the world. And every time I share it in any form, in any way, people just light up. And I love that. We've come a long way in society. And I'm blessed to live on the West Coast where it's not a thing anymore. I'm sure it would be much different. My husband actually is from Louisiana, and that's a very different environment. You know, when we're there for Christmas, you have to be a little bit more tentative. So I don't want to make it sound like you have to be, but you know what I mean? It's a different environment. It's a scarier environment there for whether or not you can let it come out of your mouth and it be okay with everybody. Because there is still very serious, very dangerous stuff going on in some of those states, unfortunately. So I feel very blessed to live where I live and for it to be a positive thing. And for me to be able to say is like, I think I could actually create like a specific mastermind for LGBTQ speakers and be very successful at it and become the guy that really helps LGBTQ people and whoever else identifies with any other letter of the alphabet to become super powerful and unapologetic in what they say.
You spoke a little bit about some of the challenges in other areas of the country and obviously the world. And, you know, considering those challenges and also the power that you're finding in just being yourself all the time, what do you want our listeners to really focus in on and make sure that they take away to always just inspire themselves to be authentic, whether it's in their own business or on the job as they're building their businesses of their dreams?
Well, and you just said it right there. And it's so funny because recently I've been working more on, you know, what the marketing message is of my business and how to really position myself. And I realized my prison was authenticity or the lack thereof it. That was my prison for a long time, being inauthentic. And my paradise is being unapologetic. And what's so interesting is that what I realize is being authentic just makes everything so much easier. There's so much more joy. Being myself and sharing it freely has become like a massive blessing. I feel supported and loved. It's a relief. I go to sleep with joy. I wake up on purpose and on fire. And, you know, I've come to develop a group of friends now that we kind of joke and we call ourselves the gays on fire, you know, because we're all doing amazing things in our businesses. And it's so cool to have that. And it's only because I'm being authentic. And sometimes, you know what, it's scary sometimes to be authentic. And sometimes you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to offend someone. And so this is what I say to that. If we don't give people a reason to reject us, how could we possibly ever give them a reason to accept us? Let them decide. If they don't like it, that's okay. But if it cuts through the BS of their life and what they've been programmed to believe, whether it be through religion or culture or whatever, maybe they can, you know, as they get to know us and they're like, you know what, they're actually amazing. And that's not going to stop me from working with them or building a friendship or whatever the case may be. And so then maybe we are actually going to authentically shift culture one person at a time.
I believe that. I know that it takes a long time to hit all of the starfish, you know, the one starfish at a time analogy. And definitely from my own personal experiences, those one-on-one conversations, just 100% just being out there and provided you feel safe, I find that really does move people and sometimes changes their minds. And, you know, I would love to keep talking about this, but we're going to jump to a very, very quick sponsorship break right now. But for our listeners, please don't go anywhere because when we return, we're going to have more of an opportunity to talk with David and all that really lights him up in his business.
HR and diversity professionals. Are you struggling with engaging LGBTQ talent? Do you stay awake at night worrying about limiting litigation risks? Have you considered seeking support around these concerns, but just aren't sure where to turn? Look no further. Rhodes Perry Consulting offers you solutions with the Engaging LGBTQ Talent A to Z certification. This proven 4-week mentorship program delivers skills, offers support, and connects you with other professionals committed to transforming themselves and their workplaces. Learn more about this cutting-edge program by visiting rhodesperry.com and use the promo code RPC for a 10% discount. Take action and visit rhodesperry.com.
Welcome back, Outbosses. We are now going into our bonus round where we'll have the chance to get to know David a little better, gain some insights on how we can bring our whole selves to work, and then learn one way to stay in touch with David after today's conversation. So David, are you ready for the quickfire questions?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. So did your LGBTQ identity hold you back from taking the entrepreneurial leap, or did it speed up the process?
I'd say neither. I worked way too hard for too long to keep it separate. So it was just kind of there, but yeah.
Nice. Like an organic kind of
Yeah.
at both ends. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And in one sentence, what does it mean to bring your whole self to work?
To show up fully as you and celebrate that.
I love that. Just celebrate yourself and be comfortable in your skin. And what's one personal habit that helps you master yourself and your business?
So I love this. I set an alarm multiple times a day, 5 or 6 times a day. And when it goes off, I celebrate. So I shake my ass, literally. And I recite my contract to myself, which is I am a real, unapologetic, audacious leader. And I do that 5 times a day, 6 times a day, and it just lights me up. It's like pushing the reset button. So that's changed everything for me.
Yeah, it's like the power of positive affirmations coupled with doing the work. So you're taking that time and refocusing and remembering your purpose.
Yep.
That's great advice. Name one thing that you readily delegate in your business to stay focused on what you're good at.
Social media.
Yes. So many people say that, and it's so smart because there's so many platforms. It's overwhelming, right?
It's overwhelming. I mean, I do all my personal posts myself, obviously, but like to create like really inspiring plaques, like I'm super creative, but it's fun to see what someone else does with what you have, with your own stuff. So yeah, I have an amazing, amazing woman who helps me build the social media platform side, and I'm so blessed to have her. Also in the LGBTQ space, I have to make another intro for you.
Yes, please. Yeah, that would be great to feature her good work on the show because social media is a sticking point for a lot of my guests. So can you share one piece of advice to inspire the next generation of outbosses to take that first entrepreneurial leap?
When in doubt, focus out. So as soon as you start getting in your head, just go out and serve people. Go out and show up big and bright, unapologetic, unmessable, unstoppable. Just show up and focus out, and the miracle shows up out there, not inside.
When in doubt, go out.
Yep.
I think that's great advice. Just keep creating your content and keep doing your thing. So David, thank you so much for your time and for inspiring fellow outbosses. Can you share one way that we can stay in touch with you and learn more about your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I've created a great little freebie called 3 Keys to Becoming a TED-worthy speaker, because I'm also a TEDx speaking coach and have a lot of TED clients. And a lot of people want to stand on that stage. And I think the LGBTQ community needs to also step up in a big way. And that is available at unforgettabletedtalks.com.
That is so generous. So thank you for sharing that. And I will be sure to include that in the show notes. So for listeners, definitely take advantage of that. Consider working with David. He is one of the best. And I think what's really great is that he's within our beautiful rainbow family. And we have a lot of stories that need to get out there and to be shared. So if you're thinking about sharing your story, especially if you've written a book and you haven't started to speak, definitely reach out to David and take advantage of that really generous gift. So for Outbosses, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. It is always my privilege to connect with you and so many other inspiring outbosses like David. As a next step, definitely check out the show notes, take advantage of that very generous offer, and consider subscribing and leaving a rating and review in iTunes for the podcast so that I can continue delivering really exciting content like this interview. And as always, keep being your authentic selves 100% of the time.